a non-calcareous spring. Lots of mosses, liverworts, and interesting flowers in here. So the water is making its way out from under the mountain, and it comes out of here then, and it flows out and into the sea. And there's a number of interesting mosses, rushes, sedges, all growing in this habitat. And this is the sort of place that you don't come across too often. So what we would love to do is to do a little detailed survey just on this area and find out what species are associated with it. Whether that's the invertebrates, mosses, the sedges, the flowers and so on. Because it's an extremely interesting feature, not one you come across that often. But there may be a number of other features like this all along the coast in the Baltimore area. And then up behind it we have heathland, which merges into cliff, and right on up then up to the top of the hill where sheep and cattle are grazing. It's a stunning wild landscape here. This island out in the distance is called the Kedge, and years ago we were told that people used to bring animals out there for grazing in old Baltimore yawls. It is a wonderful example of a traditional farming practice, and of course traditional farming practices have a big impact on the land and what sort of biodiversity we have. That area, that's a flush, that's a wetland that's been established because there's a spring behind it. And as I scroll along the hillside, there's another flush just in here. These are really important habitat types from a conservation perspective in Ireland. And something that should be treasured that you have them here in the landscape. I bet you're finding it difficult to hear me now, but that's because this area is also extremely windswept. But of course it is, because there's nothing out there but the whole Atlantic. An absolutely stunning place. So not only is it great for biodiversity, but anyone who feels like they need to clear their mind, you gotta come down. Another spring just here. Some Foods watercress. Each one of these springs we've come to so far, this is the third or fourth one, we always find a flower that we haven't found in one of the others. There's plenty of stuff here we're unsure of what it is, which is a great thing. This is dense bracken. This stuff is the bracken. And for the habitat to be called dense bracken, there needs to be a minimum of 50% bracken present. So we're definitely in dense bracken here. So this zone where I am here, just all around me, there's dense bracken, flushes, there's another one below, there's a spring, there's heather, and a little bit beyond there's GS3 grassland, and then all the coastal habitats that you have in the sea itself. Cliffs, rocky seashore, and then the littoral habitats, as in the stuff that's beneath the tidal line. We're not going to survey those down here as it'd be a little bit dangerous, but it's another area for exploration. We see a lot of mixed grazing. There are sheep in the background there, and horses, and there's cattle up in the hill. There's horses across in a neighbouring farm there, and horses in this farm, along with some rare breed Irish cattle called Dexters. So these grazing animals, the horses, the cows, the sheep on the other farms, they all have an influence on the type of grassland we find on the farm. So the more diversity we have in terms of our grazers, well then the more diversity we're going to have in terms of the flora that we find on farms. they're very much responsible for the mosaic of different types of habitat we see in front of us, from the areas with bracken to the denser tussocky grassy areas, wet grassland below, and the basin down in here, and then the regular field grasslands. I'm in a basin of wet grassland. There's lots of grasses and rushes and flowering species, but in particular there's one down here we're interested in. It's called Devil's Bit scabious, and this is the host plant for a very important butterfly called marsh fritillary. These butterflies are very high up in the conservation agenda in terms of Europe, but Ireland is a stronghold for them. So without this plant, Devil's Bit scabious, you won't have marsh fritillary, because they depend on it. It's what they eat, and they're caterpillars. Not today, but if you look around, you could sometimes find a little batch of eggs at the base of the plant. The Devil's Bit scabious is very plentiful in here. And there's a range of other pollinators that like it too. Like all these bees on it today. And this place is just one example of what I have to say is many little pockets of wetland throughout the Baltimore landscape. And places like this should be cherished. People might see it as maybe waste ground, but it's certainly not that from the nature point of view. And as we move through it, the type of habitat merges away from being wet grassland and more towards a heath. And we even have a little bit of bog cotton still here. And the lovely yellow firs. This one is the western firs. We have purple moorgrass. And there are old banks in this area that have been dug of earthen banks that were created when drains were dug out. And as you walk down through the land, follow those drains, and just down around the corner a while ago I found a little pond down in there. Such a beautiful fragrant smell off the ivy. And of course now at this time of the year, the autumn, it's flowering. And it is so full of life. Wasps, solitary bees, bumblebees, honeybees, hundreds of them on it. And that buzz of birds in the background, the flock of starlings scattering in this tree above the hedge. So when we look for signs of nature and for biodiversity, we might think we have to go into wilder landscapes out in the countryside, but this is just on the edge of town. So much life around me.
There's plenty of mosquitoes in here, you know?
Exactly, not as many as the one I have the buckets in, and it actually took me a while to kind of...
Yeah. You have plenty of carixids, these little lesser bacterias, you see. Plenty of them. No, yeah.
today I'm in Ballyvergan Reedbed in Youghal, watching a load of late swallows here, eating insects, having a good time. And not only am I here with swallows today, but I'm also here with Katrina and Simon from UCC, who are doing a research project on behalf of Youghal Tidy Towns, who are trying to learn lots about Ballyvergan Reedbed because they're interested in managing it from the biodiversity perspective. And Simon and Katrina are going to tell us a little bit about their projects, which from what I know they're looking into sticklebacks and mosquitoes. But Simon, you might fill us in a bit better, please.
Thank you, William. Yes, so as you said, we're here in Ballyvergan Marsh, which many years ago was a grazing marsh. You can see the remnants of the old fence lines here, but over the recent years it's now becoming a reed bed. But we still have many of the pools and creeks that were dug by the farmers years ago to drain the marsh, and these now are filled with water, and much of these pools are filling with the tidal water that comes in the creek from the sea there. What we've noticed in the marsh is that some of these pools, but not all of them, some of them have lots of mosquito larvae in. Other ones don't. We've also noticed that some of the pools have sticklebacks in them, the little tawnine, the little fish, and others don't. And what we're surmising, or we're going to experiment here today, is this reason why some pools have mosquitoes and some don't, due to stickleback. If a stickleback could get into a pool, perhaps it's because it's connected to another part, do they then eat the mosquitoes? If they can't get in because the pools are isolated, then maybe that's where the mosquito larvae are abundant. The implications of this are actually very interesting, because although these mosquitoes probably don't cause any damage, they don't bite people, we know that we're in a warming world now. With climate change, it seems to be pervasive in the news, and it is likely that in years to come, decades to come, mosquitoes could become more of a problem in the marsh, and of course that brings with it the risk, possibility of disease, certainly annoyance to people. So the sticklebacks may actually be performing a really, really important job. There's not much information about sticklebacks. I think a lot of people might recognise they can eat mosquito larvae, but we want to test how good they are. In other parts of the world, they use a little fish called the mosquito fish, Gambusia, which is like a guppy, and these are used across many parts of the world to control mosquitoes in little pools. So you've got a little pool, the mosquitoes in, put a few of these mosquito fish, and off they go. So maybe we can do that with the stickleback in years to come. So ours is, I think, the first experiment to see whether sticklebacks can be used as a form of control for mosquitoes.
And Katrina,
Yeah.
as part of your project, you're also interested in finding out where there are mosquitoes in other parts of Youghal, and part of this video is to ask people in Youghal to help us to be able to identify those places. So what is it you're going to be looking for people to do?
So, what we'll show you in a minute is if we show you what the mosquito larvae actually look like. And you can find them a lot in kind of stagnant waters, I think like bird ponds, and if anybody around Youghal or in the area can identify the larvae, they can send on their information.
Lots of little small isolated pools, and sort of old,
Yeah.
old tyres, little pools, and water butts, this kind of thing. The adult female can lay her eggs in a very nasty stagnant little pool. The larvae will then eat detritus, very poor quality food, and then they emerge from the water as adults. And this is their second big trick, is the adult female will then seek a blood meal, which will give her the protein and the carbohydrate and all the nutrients she needs to develop her eggs and to lay fertile eggs in another pool. So they'll lay these very food poor stagnant systems with the knowledge, I suppose, or the adaptation is that the females can then get a big blood meal and subsidize what she needs for her eggs in the blood of a bird or a mammal or something like that. Okay, so these blood feeding insects can live in very food poor habitats as larvae, because they get the energy, the food, as adults.
When they're older, and in order to be able to, when they go into their adult life cycle, they need to be able to suck blood.
Yeah.
Is that something people should be scared of, or?
Definitely not. No.
Okay.
They just suck blood of small mammals, birds. Nothing to be concerned about. Not here. Not in this country. So yeah, nothing to be worried about. It's not an issue.
Okay, thanks.
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm here walking along the line in Passage, and I'm with Walty, who's from the locality, and we're just having a chat about nature. What are all them birds out there, Walty?
Well, you've a good variety of birds. You have obviously your seagulls, your oyster catcher, turnstone, your mallard duck. I think I can see shelduck. Shelduck there now in the distance for the two of them, straight on ahead. You know, there's a great, this Slabland here is a great place for them really. And so there should be a lot more here this morning, but obviously they're gone elsewhere. So, you know, and you see the shelduck now, that there's just two going back to the shelduck. Normally you see a good flock of those here.
They're the kind of white and red
See,
and
yes.
black ones.
So there are only two of them there, they're a fair distance out.
Yeah.
They just concentrate now and you see the way they slide their beak along the mud. You can see the water now coming out from the culvert up above and that goes back. I suppose it goes back a good mile and a half. It streams, takes all the farmers, a lot of the land up above the top side. You can have a look. I don't matter, go with you. Doesn't matter, go with you.
They are, yeah. And call it curlew calling above.
The region, the colours are similar to the teal one.
They are.
The teal one is smaller.
Yeah.
The stone now is down and also on the base of that the culvert, the stone what is something else is right, it's front pepper. You know, it's not just stone thrown down there. You can see it's actually
An amazing specimen of a tree, and we don't see too many trees like this in communities around Ireland. Yeah, we've lots of significant trees of this sort of nature around the country, but you know, if on a community level they're few and far between, and you really have to get close to this tree just to appreciate how special it is. Obviously it's appreciated by, I assume, young people in the area, still play here quite a lot. But just the trunk and the shape of the tree and the way it snarls, oh. What do you think of it, Owen?
It's a great tree. It's not a typical beech tree. Beech trees tend to be kind of straight up, and this is a bit curved and a bit all over the place, which is great. Which means it's different and it's iconic and it's even more interesting. It's clearly a remnant of some other activity that was here before this relatively modern housing estate, but it's great that it's still at the heart of this community, at the heart of this housing estate, and clearly a great tree for playing on, for a focal point for people living around here.
Yeah, so when I come to this tree, I think back to my youth, I suppose, as a younger child coming in here and exploring this quarry. And some things don't change, I suppose, and that's one of the things about trees I like, is that they live for so long that, you know, they speak to a great depth of time in our communities. They have that continuity with the past, and I think that this tree, as you know, attractive as it is in its own right, as a beech tree, as a specimen tree, it speaks to the community and to the history of our community as well, and some things just don't change.
Raven overhead. Calling. That's another member of the crow family. Higher pitched. So we've raven. And we've rooks. Both calling. Along this lovely country road, I've met two local people, Johnny and Sakita from the Tidy Towns. And they're going to tell me a little bit about what they think is special in terms of nature in Baltimore.
For me, it's such a beautiful and diverse place. I love walking. I try to go walking every day, and even when you're stuck in lockdown, you can only go 5 kilometers from your own house. From here you can go to a mountain, you can go to the sea, you can go to a lake, you can find wonderful wee paths. It's just stunningly beautiful. Sakita?
Yeah, well, it's all of those things, and it's also such a contrast from where I grew up, which was in East Anglia, which was very flat. We didn't have rocks, we had stones, but vastly different. With this, there's a different scene in every nook and cranny. There's Trafraska down there, there's a little teeny beach, and then a rocky cliff, and then you can find another little teeny beach, and they all look completely different. And I've spoken to people who've lived here for quite some time, and they sort of said, "Oh, I've never been down there," and you sort of think, yeah, it's just amazing. It's another little place to discover, but it's the bird life and the flowers that are great variety, but the birds, just listening to the choughs and watching the ravens tumble. And sometimes we get a group of, no kidding, sort of 15 to 20 choughs coming over, and they're sort of tumbling in the sky, and it's just amazing just to sort of stand there and watch and think, people come here on holiday, I live here. It's such a privilege.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really is. Yeah.
And I've only gone into wildflowers since I came here, and there's a mass of them everywhere. So many, and I've got really into the wee ones, the wee tiny ones. I am going to mention my procumbent pearlwort. It's one of my favourites. And the mass of colour that they give, even at all the odd times of the year, it's really lovely. And then we're right by the coast, and there's loads of otters in Roaring Water Bay, and you can go whale watching.
Yeah.
It's just brilliant.
Yeah. No, it's nice getting out on the water. It's a good excuse. I think we've got a good
adventure today has brought me to Bun Douglas, a new beach I've never found. Looks like it could be a great surfing break. But as I've walked along the shore, I've been followed by a seal. Just popping his head up there. That wave in front of us. Been following me along. The seal is so interested in me. Not very many people come here. I know local people that live in this area and they've never even been to this beach. So I've noticed you, but you've certainly noticed me, Mr. Seal. Just over there. It's gone beneath the water now. There he is again. Such a beautiful place this, really remote. Northwest Connemara. Storm beach, all these stones washed up from winter waves. There you see remnants of old ancient forests, likely a bog oak or a bog pine. This guy here. And behind we have reed bed and mountainside. You can see the lines on this hill up here. That's the remnants of where people used to grow potatoes. Closest village to here is off out in the distance. It's called Cleggan. See how steep this beach is? That's a sign of what the waves do around here. They get going. It's protected by the bit of island out there in front of us, but I bet this place gets really wild. Today there's about 5 meters swell. But I can imagine what it's like here when there's 10 meters rolling in from the wild Atlantic. And here beneath my feet, more remnants of that long lost ancient forest. That tree stump could be there for more than 5,000 years. Perhaps only recently exposed by the sea. See more outside. Magic place.
Very wet and cold. Probably about 6 degrees, is it, William, if even?
I don't know.
William's gone in. He's gone every day since we got up here, but this is the first day going without a wetsuit, so he's a bit apprehensive. Fair play, Will!
Oh, they'll come in now. Oh. It is as cold as you would imagine.
Oh, William! You're going in again?
It's the show I like. No.